In thinking about God as creator, right? Thinking about those early chapters of Genesis, or other chapters that talk about creation, what are some concepts, some ideas that we can draw from, some basic beliefs that we can draw from both God as creator and what those early chapters of Genesis tell us about creation? Okay, unity of God. What are some other things we can learn from those creation chapters? All right, so there's qualities of God, his care, his compassion. What else?
His power.
All right, his power, and in speaking things into existence, being responsible for everything. What else does it tell us about God? That he has feelings, right? He's not an impersonal God. He's not a God that's separate from his creation in the sense of, I created and you just let it go. And so all of these things, I think, here we have this basic summation of the creation story, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But when we look at what those opening chapters of Genesis tell us, we see some very important ideas about God, right? His care for creation, his power, the fact that he's a feeling God, a close God. Those are all important things to keep in mind. What do those early chapters tell us about, and then other things we can think about? I mean, there's other passages in the Psalms, for example, that talk about the nature of creation. What are some things that we can note about how God views what he's created, what we can tell from those chapters talking about creation?
He thinks it's good.
He thinks it's good. All right? Now, let's pause there for a second. Because what's another way to think about creation? This is a simplistic answer, but there may be fishing with a bad bait. Right? God thinks it's good, but what is another possible way to think about creation? It's good, we got bad. Right? I mean, God doesn't think of it as bad, but let's say that our creation story, right? We're part of a religion, and the creation story says creation is bad. Right? There was a group, early Christian group known as the Gnostics, and they looked at the physical world as being evil. So, if you look at the creation as being good, what does that tell us? What are some things we can draw from God saying it is good after creating a variety of things, versus if we had a creation story that says, right, creation is bad, or physical universe is bad? How do you look at the world differently from one compared to the other?
Positive. If you're thinking about it being good and have a positive light about it, you're going to think about it being bad, you're always going to think about it negatively, looking at people negatively.
All right, so that the positive versus negative view. What else? Might you think, if you think creation is good? What are some other ideas we can draw from that? Okay, that might be a possibility. I mean, we're certainly bringing in some other concepts from the creation narrative about evil. What else?
and everything else. But God has no faithfulness to have himself. He placed Adam and Eve in the garden and then put CCH a lot of condition of being with us too. So, I mean, he had to have some sort of faith that, and he listens to the
Okay, all right, so that opposite optimism of human ability. But before we get to talking about humans, which we'll get talking about humans here in a minute, let's just talk about everything in creation besides human beings. Right, let's focus on that. What do you think about food if you look at creation being good versus creation being bad?
There's all these opportunities. You can, I guess, utilize. You can eat whatever you want. There's all kinds of different fruits and vegetables, stuff that God thought up. All these different things. I mean, there's, I guess, a few man-made items that you can eat and stuff, but the fact that there's all these options that no one's starving because they don't like anything on the planet or whatever.
Okay, so the variety of what's available, right? God doesn't just give us, like, food packets, right, that are tasteless but provide us with all the nutrients and energy we need. Right? He provides us with variety. We don't have to eat the same thing all the time. We can enjoy food instead of looking at food as a necessary evil. Well, I got to eat this to survive versus, I get to enjoy these tastes and these flavors, that God gave me senses to enjoy the creation around me. Versus, looking at, this is something that's going to draw away from spiritual release. Okay, and that's kind of getting into the human part, this idea of free will. But that God gives us positive opportunities. Now, certainly we'll get into the temptation aspect and those kind of things, and so there's possibility of moving away from God. But when we look at creation as good, we should see this as something that is for the benefit of human beings, something that is positive, right? So, just looking at food, for example. God calls creation good, as we've noted. Another thing that we should note as well is that creation is ordered. We don't live in chaos. We live in, human beings have kind of made it into chaos. But when God originally creates it, He creates an ordered world with everything in its place, right? The trees are going to bear seeds after their kind, right? So there's this order to creation, both in how creation works, and then also the pinnacle of human beings being at the top of creation. Creation is goal-oriented. It is not random. It is not just kind of wander around aimlessly, right? When Adam and Eve are created, they are created to tend the garden, right? There's goals. There's a purpose behind creation. God didn't just go, here we go, right? And just whatever comes out. Right? He intentionally creates life. He intentionally creates the sky. He intentionally creates all the living things to live in certain habitats for certain purposes. Right? You're to multiply and fill the earth. And so there's a purpose behind creation and given to creation. I keep losing my cursor because I keep catching it on the screen. Let's go to humanity now. Right? So the created things, the birds of the air, the fish of the sea, etc., the trees, all those kind of things. Humanity. When God creates human beings, what are some of the things, some of the ideas we can draw out from the creation of human beings? All right, so this phrase, right, in His image. So there's a way in which human beings are different than the rest of creation because nothing else is said to be created in His image. Now, what does it mean that human beings are created in His image? Okay? Okay, so it could refer to characteristics, right? And so in His image, we reflect characteristics of God. We probably wouldn't say it's physical, right? That God has 2 arms, 5 fingers, 10 fingers, 10 toes. So we don't think it has to do with our physical shape, but we think it's more this kind of characteristics. What else can we say about humanity or being in God's image?
It just shows that He was the complete creator.
Okay.
There was no assistance with evolution.
All right. There's something about that by human beings reflecting God's image, they are a special creation versus it happened so that it was, oh, hey, look, human beings are like what I am. Right? No, it's that intentional creation of human beings in His image.
I think on at least some level, it could be, in His image as in like a reflection of Him, and that, the way He has dominion over heaven and both other people, He gave us dominion over earth.
Okay, so He kind of passes along some responsibilities to human beings, right? That just as He is creator, we are to be creator. Just as He is carer, we are to be carer, both in our characteristics, but also then kind of the tending the earth, so to speak, being in control, representing the lordship. Other things you can think about. It doesn't have to necessarily be that in His image phrase, but other things that you can think about that the creation narrative tells us about human beings. All right, before we get to what happens to human beings. Okay. When God creates human beings, He says they are very good versus just good. And there are probably a variety of things that fit into that. The fact that we are in His image, and the fact that we are the ones that have the ability to care or tend the earth where the others don't. Right? And so there's a lot of things that are different about human beings that make us very good versus just being good.